Hello, and welcome everyone to Papa Hector's Spiritual Podcast. On today's episode, we're going to talk about something that you definitely need to know, which is capacity versus titles. This is going to be a very important topic that you're really going to want to know about. So, first of all, if you haven't already done so, you can subscribe to our podcast via Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iTunes, and Google Podcasts. So make sure that you go ahead and do that. And if you'd like, make sure you favorite us or click subscribe here on Anchor. So let's get started. Titles versus capacity. Titles are just like anything else. Like you have the title of a doctor, you have the title of a president. You have titles that are given to people that have been initiated or who have received ceremonies consecrating them at various levels of power or development within whatever spiritual branch of Voodoo, 21 Divisions, Sanse, Voodoo, whatever you want to call it, that they're practicing. Okay? Titles is one thing. Capacity is another. Capacity is what is that person actually capable of? What can they actually do and accomplish? Two different things. However, one often gets heavily associated naturally with the other. And this is because, especially in our work of 21 Divisions and Sanse, even if one had received certain rituals or certain ceremonies, one would not achieve a certain title until he or she had proven that he or she had those capacities to match that title. Capacity, just because someone has a title, doesn't mean that they're capable of doing certain works, certain spiritual ceremonies, rituals, or even divination, okay, that is assumed that can be done by people of that title. That's the way it is nowadays, okay? Nowadays, just because someone doesn't have a title does not indicate that they do not have a particular capacity. They don't have a particular skill or a particular knowledge and wisdom to be able to apply that skill. So there's a difference between titles and capacity. Oftentimes people can go and attain titles without necessarily having capacities by purchasing in various locations where they do that, purchasing those titles. And it's the equivalent of basically going and purchasing a doctor's license without ever going through any of the schooling, without going through any of the training or having the knowledge to practice as a doctor. Unfortunately, oftentimes, these individuals after receiving this doctor's license, start practicing or start a doctor's practice. And the truth is they haven't received the knowledge or the training, the education, the schooling that would have been received via normal path, right? Normal education. You have an education, you go to college, you go to school, you get an education, you get the title or the degree, you get your doctor's license. These individuals are getting the doctor's license, but never having the education or the knowledge and the training, the skill set being trained and developed to be able to do that doctor's work. And they may go on and offer doctor's work without having that proper knowledge and training. Vice versa, you might have someone who has all the knowledge, education, training, and skill set to be able to do that doctor's job, but not have the license. Okay? And in our work, the license does give you certain things, certain permissions, certain knowledges that you can't get without the license, and also certain powers and capacities. So he or she may also be limited, but they have the knowledge and the education, they have the wisdom, they have the skill set, they have the capacities, the abilities to do the work. They may not have the license. Unfortunately, this is dangerous. Not actually, in both senses, it's a dangerous way to work, and we've seen it time and time again. What actually brought me to do this episode on this topic is actually that I had a recent person who had come in, and we'll call her Reina. Okay, and so Reina came in because Reina was initiated as a Mambo, a high priestess within the Haitian Voodoo tradition. And like many, she did not really undergo the proper training, the proper development, unravelment, didn't have her skill set trained up to capacity. Yet, like many, she proceeded to do works and do spiritual work that she didn't really have the proper training or the proper development to be able to handle. And as a result of that, what ended up happening to her was that she ended up taking on a lot of these people's negative energies, problems, and issues. Okay? These started to manifest in her life and started turning on her, making her ill, making her sick. Everything that had kind of started to go well through the rituals she had undergone herself of initiation, because initiation does bring a lot of benefits to it just in and of itself, has started to go sour. And she didn't let up on doing what she was doing for others, so things just continued to get worse, and she started to become less and less clear and more confused in her life. This resulted in her basically making a few different, moves in her life, which were not beneficial and which ended up causing her much pain, much suffering, and to have everything kind of crash down on top of her. And what ended up happening was she ended up out in the street for some time, living out in the street, from house to house. She didn't have a place to keep her children with her, so her children had to go to another relative. She lost the job that she did have because she was only doing her spiritual work part-time. And basically everything came crumbling down, along with her health. When she came in for a session, it was really clear, okay? Through what she had done, a lot of the problems she was working for, she had taken on her own self. But more importantly than that, okay, negative entities, negative spirits, false spirits had become attached to her, which had started to cause her the confusion. Naturally, this pushed away the good energies, the good forces. And from there, she just had further and further problems. So once we aligned her and we got her stopped doing the work for other people, we were able to cleanse her, remove the entities, and move forward. And in reality, it was really, really simple. It took less than a day for things to start turning around for her, once we started basically removing the entities, pushing away the negative forces. And one day things started turning around for her. And within 2 days, she had already reported finding work and finding a more stable place to stay. And we expect that she'll be getting better and better. But this is not the only case and scenario. This is not the only example. I have many of these examples. And unfortunately, it happens all the time. Okay? It happens all the time. It's a dangerous thing. Another case that we had, and this was some time ago, quite some time ago, was a woman who was an espiritista. Now, she was untrained, but she chose to start running a center anyway. And because she had some natural gifts and capacities. So now in this case, she had the gifts, she had the capacities, but she didn't have the protections, she didn't have the training, the formal training, knowledge, and education. She didn't have the guidance of a teacher. When she first came in, it was just at the beginning of her deciding to start this center and everything like that. She was, still in a good state. And I offered her what she needed, and aside from that, I warned her of what would happen if she would proceed without. Unfortunately, many people allow their ego to get in their way. Unfortunately, a lot of people think themselves more capable than what they're able. Unfortunately, arrogance is a big thing. And another unfortunate thing is that many people who haven't done their spiritual development work, don't have the clearance or the clarity, and the freedom of negative energies themselves to not end up, to have the knowledge to go forward and do things the right way. So she was given her warning. 6 months later, she returned. And to make a long story short, within that 6 months, she had been doing effective cleansings for people. She had been removing entities from people. She had been removing evil spirits from people. She had been helping people resolve love problems and divorces. She had done a lot. In return, her own life was in complete shambles. Her husband started cheating on her within those 6 months. And he started cheating on her with her neighbor. Now, they lived in an apartment, so the bedrooms shared a wall between her and her neighbor. She could hear when her husband was sleeping with the other woman, having sex with the other woman, banging against the wall. Her husband had stopped taking care of their kids. Now, mind you, they're neighbors at this point, but he would pretty much go ghost on the kids and would avoid being caught, seen around when the kids were around outside playing. He would avoid his own children. Eventually to the point where him and the new woman ended up moving to a new house, a full-on house, something she had been begging her husband for years. But her husband, without a problem, went and got a loan, took out a loan, and got his new chick a house. Yes, indeed. If that wasn't enough for her, just that morning before coming in for her session, she had a flat tire and her car wouldn't start. Both. And she had to end up getting her mother to come and bring her over. So her mother had to start bring her over for her session. And aside from that, her hair was falling out. She was extremely thin. Her skin was like pale, pasty, and like paper. And she didn't have money coming in like it was before because her husband removed his financial support. The center itself would slowly go on a downhill turn as another center, led by another medium, had come into the space as competition to her center, into this town, and was on an avid campaign against them. So this is all what happens when she comes into the next session, just 6 months after she had started this center. So now I'm going to give you guys a little break in telling you some events that we have coming up October 2018, or these next upcoming events. And then we're going to get back into her story, as well as basically capacity and titles and what to do moving forward if you have either one. So I'll see you on the other side. Hey there, I want to let you know about some of our upcoming events, and it'd be awesome to see you there. I just want to let you know everything that we have going on. So first off, my book, Doña Juana, Journeys of a Bruja Espiritista and Healer, is now on ebook, and you can publish it at lulu.com. If you go to hectorsalva.com, you'll find that under books, you'll find the link for it where you can publish it as an ebook and read it on your iPhone, your Kindle, your e-reader, whatever you have going on there for you. Number 2 is that alongside of that, you can get a chance to get a free raffle ticket. Once you read the book, simply like my Facebook page and leave us a review of the book on the Lulu page, and we'll give you a free raffle ticket for a free 20-minute consultation with me, Papa Hector. Our raffle drawing will be done October 27th during the ancestral seance, which brings me to point number 3. Here in October, on October 27th at 3 p.m. in Berlin, New Jersey, we will be holding the ancestral seance, where we'll be having all of our great mediums from our temple, our sanctuary, who will be communicating messages from loved ones, from the spirit guides, etc. You can get your tickets at greatestspells.net. Just look up seance or wherever you see upcoming events. We also have a Facebook page for that. Last point is, in this month of October, also on the 27th, that weekend, we have sunset initiations, changing your life and consecrating your spirit. And what does sunset initiation do for you? Well, we already had another podcast on that, and you could check that out. But if you really want to make a major life change, you might want to have a quick session with me and see if this is the thing for you. So that's what we have coming up October 2018, and hope to see you soon. So we're back on capacities versus titles. Now back to the story of this espiritista. So she came in and the life was in shambles. The guidance from the spirits was very clear. Shut down the center, stop the spiritual work that you're doing, cleanse, cleared, get on proper training and protection so that your life could be resolved. However, because this spiritualist, this espiritista, this medium, had not done her spiritual training and development, this guidance from the spirits was a huge blow to her fragile ego. As a huge blow to her fragile ego, she didn't listen. She didn't do what was necessary. So we would see her again 6 months after that last session. So now it's about a year. At this point, she's back. What's happening now? The center is closing. The center is closing. Her husband has started the divorce proceedings. She's had to move into a smaller apartment. She's had a whole host of health problems, which has given her a whole host of financial problems. She has struggled to get any financial child support for her children, anything from her husband. And she's having nightmares. She's unable to sleep. And she's being spiritually attacked by a number of people, including those leading the other center. At this point in time, she's totally crushed. And she can see that she's heading into the nothingness. So she asked for guidance. The guidance was clear. Let go of the center. Get cleansed and cleared. At this point, as far as the husband was concerned, she had lost him. That was done. That was over. As far as the health issues, if she didn't get started on them soon, they would go worse and worse. As far as her finances, they were tied with her health, and that wasn't having an improvement anytime soon. So finally, because the center was already in collapse, she moved forward because she had no other choice. With closing the center, she effectively closed the center, stopped doing the work, and received cleansing and clearing. Started regaining health. Regaining health and therefore finance. And unfortunately, her arrogance again got in the way of her continuing her training, her doing what was necessary for her to really unravel. But the good thing was, by not providing services for others, she wasn't taking on their problems. So she started to get her life stabilized again and restarted holding, group workshops and things of this nature, but changed the direction. She stopped offering misa, she stopped offering cleanses, she stopped offering all of this, and started working more so as a liaison to bring in people for things that people actually knew how to do and could speak about truly. And although she hasn't overcome all of her issues and problems because she didn't go through everything that she needed, her life had majorly improved. So, what to do? What to do? If you have the title, it's very simple. If you have a title that you don't have the capacity, knowledge, wisdom, or training for, then you shouldn't do anything with that title other than take care of your own spirit until you achieve those things that you need, which is the proper knowledge, training, and capacity. and development and unravelment. When you guide others and you're not properly cleared, you don't have those things unraveled how they should be, you're in essence harming them as well as yourself. If you have the capacities, you still need training, guidance, and development and learning how to deal with those things. But then you also need to know what it is that you need, maybe on a spiritual level, in a different way, to have the protections, to have what you need to have in order for you to do that work effectively. So it's a very simple solution. Now, one thing that you're going to have to comprehend is that in order for you to resolve these things, you need to put your ego and yourself in check and onto the side. Because it takes a lot, okay, to really do the spiritual work properly. Your ego and all of that has to be placed aside. You have to be able to work on all aspects. And one thing that is absolutely essential for spiritual development, but people don't want to hear it, is the development of character and the development certain healing. You can't go in to do spiritual work for others and haven't gone through plenty of healing yourself. You don't have to necessarily be 100% healed, but you do have to have certain healing that has taken place. You have to have certain things that have occurred in order for you to have that capacity. And if you're trying to shortcut things, the only person that's being shortcutted is yourself. I see it all the time. Okay? People who are either initiates and yet don't have what they need on the other end, or have the capacities and are practicing and don't have what they need on the other end. Okay? And there's just various areas of life that are just blocked, stopped, cyclical, not healed. There's certain issues that should not be present. Okay? When one is doing the spiritual work, especially when one is doing the spiritual work for others. But if you're doing the spiritual work, there are certain issues that should not be present in your life. Period, point blank, amen. And everyone has issues. Everyone has problems. But there are certain things that should not be present, period, point blank, amen, in your life. And if they are present, they should be things that are being unraveled and dissolved, dealt with, healed, so that they're done with, depending on how far you've come along in your spiritual journey and your spiritual process. Okay? If you're just at the beginning, or you've been dealing with other things, then there might be certain things. But if you're at a certain point or have certain amount of time in your spiritual work, one way or another, and there are certain things that are present, they indicate that certain things are off. And perhaps I'll go in another podcast about that if I get any commentary to do so. But for those who are neither initiated or have the capacities, my last point before I close out this podcast is if you're not initiated and you don't have the capacities, okay, and you're not looking to do the spiritual work for others or even for yourself, but you're looking for a spiritual worker. I've made YouTube video on it, But aside from that, what you need to look for is very simple: the character, life, and style of the person, the truth of that person that you're working with. Okay? And perhaps I'll again create another podcast about that. Again, if I get commentary or questions about it. So that concludes my podcast today about capacities versus titles. And I hope you're doing well. Stay blessed. May God and the mysteries grace you. Don't forget to like, subscribe to us here on iTunes. I forget. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, YouTube. We got a Facebook page. We got 1,000,001 websites, all that good jazz, okay? And I definitely want to hear from you. If you like the episode, you have questions, you have comments, feel free to reach out. We want to hear from you, okay? Look forward to supporting you in your spiritual journey and keep the faith. God bless. It's Papa Hector signing off.
The podcast you just heard was published with Anchor. Got something you want to say to the creator of this show? Send them a voice message using the Anchor app, free for iOS and Android.